JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Want to know what's really bizarre? Gamer Subs partnered with JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. Gamer Subs just dropped 6 new character cups and a brand new JoJo flavor, Ocean Stone Fruit. Now, does it taste like the ocean, stones, or fruit? Who the knows? But you can use the link in my description and use code DRAKE to get 10% off your order to find out. Plus, European and Australian viewers get a free shaker bottle with the purchase of any tub. So why not throw some Gamer Subs on the bobby to help me pay my rent? Y'all do have anime to go with the giant spiders in Australia, right? Greetings, adventurers, and welcome back to the Den of the Drake. Other dragons hoard gold, while I hoard internet cringe. Now, this might come as a shock to some of you, but I kinda like playing TTRPGs. You may all now gasp in amazement. Yeah, you'd think that after all the billions of stories I've read about RPGs going wrong that I would have quit these things faster than influencers are quitting Creator Clash. But what some people don't realize is that the good times outweigh the bad by a factor of like 1,000 to 1. One of my favorite things about TTRPGs is that there are actual stakes and consequences. Death is often permanent, so if your character dies, that character that you and your fellow players built an attachment to is gonzo. So that's a pretty good incentive to be invested in what's happening. The only other scenario that I can think of that inspires a similar amount of investment is real life. Except in that game, stabbing people doesn't exactly make you friends. Well, I guess it can, but those kinds of friends force you to get matching tattoos and beat you up if you don't sneak illicit substances into federal buildings up your you-know-what, so yeah, I'll be sticking to RPGs, thanks. But it's that exact overwhelming fear of permadeath that nurtures the camaraderie in an RPG group more than anything else. When y'all go through it and come out the other side having earned that win in a narratively satisfying way, it's a feeling like no other. But this is still Den of the Drake, dear viewer. That means someone went and found a way to f*** it all up. The story I have for you today stars a player who shows up to a D&D campaign with a character who is the GOAT. No, seriously, they're a literal goat. Here's a picture they shared with me. Now, this may seem like a recipe for a good time, but unfortunately, they got stuck with a DM who thinks that the fun in RPGs comes not from overcoming the threat of death, but because of the promise of death. I would call this guy the Grim Reaper, but he's so stupidly sure of himself that Dim Reaper seems more appropriate. Now, without any further delay, let's go ahead and dive right into the horrifying world of r/RPG horror stories. Enjoy. This week's story comes from Reddit user Lilium Caramelcorn and is titled DM Wanted Anybody to Die, and I kept preventing it, so he killed the party mascot. A few months ago, I was part of a wonderful virtual D&D 5e game that had a sudden turn at the very end. The participants were the couple, 2 players who came as a unit, a warlock and a sorcerer. Rocky, I don't remember his class, but he threw rocks. The Oni, warlock barbarian, my character's bestie, and a nice player. The DM, a random guy I found on a forum, and me with my character, the GOAT, a small goat woman and bard. We were 5th or 6th level. We had been playing for a couple months by the time our final game came around. Honestly, everything had been normal and things were progressing as usual. I felt like we kinda sped through any NPC or social interactions, and I started to realize the rotation was to go to the castle, get a quest, minimal dialogue, and then go do a dungeon for the session. It's not my favorite way to play, but the players really made up for it. We had wonderful dialogue between each other, and it seemed like the DM was cool to let that happen. I admit I felt pride at the positive attention from the party with how much they loved the GOAT. Becoming the party mascot naturally felt great, and I performed my role proudly. All of that to say, everybody loved having me there, and specifically the character I performed brought a lot of energy to the table. Well, after being rushed out of the castle again, the party made their way to some ruins for the next leg of our adventure. We hadn't met any definitive BBEG yet, but it seemed like we were getting close with how dangerous things were getting. Oh, there were a lot of close calls during that session. There were giant centipedes hiding in marshy waters with deadly venom. The party managed to resist or avoid most of the bites, just narrowly, but our NPC follower wasn't so lucky and looked rough for the rest of the dungeon. We fought through demons and centipedes and had the ground crumble beneath our feet to lava pit, and defeated shambling bones infused with hydrated plant life before we even reached the entrance to the ruins interior. The entire time I felt rather proud of myself. I have been doing quite well in maintaining the health of the party and preventing multiple downs or even deaths. In the last battle with the Shambling Bones, I had even prevented the Oni from going down twice. In character, the party was feeling rough and beaten. but we still had to progress into the ruins to find our MacGuffin. We took a moment to sit down and plan/recoup. We even had some cute RP moments. Eventually, the DM had voices whisper to the couple, egging them to go into the ruin and interrupting our short rest. We went in and had to fight back against supposedly respawning ghosts. That is to say, we were being encouraged not to take a rest, even though our characters were knocking on death's door. So we just kept going. We fight through and get to a room with 4 statues. Our poor NPC friend, who I had been literally keeping above water in that last room, was laid down to rest while the venom kept getting worse. We tried to short rest again, and got through it. But the DM kept insisting that something was coming and that something was going to happen. But I think our party agreed that we'd just have to deal with it because we couldn't keep going without the rest. The DM declares after an hour of rest, a wind spirit guardian of some sort attacks us, telling us that it must protect the prisoners. Those statues were actually the petrified bodies of some world-ending threats apparently. And our MacGuffin wasn't even in this room. We tried to insist that we weren't trying to free the prisoners, but the spirit attacked anyways. After preventing another death with a heal spell, the DM declares one of our party members gets thrown into the statues by the spirit, and it lands in the water, unleashing a 12-foot-tall Oni, who then gave the rest of his pals a soak. At this point, I'm getting a little baffled by this turn of events. A fight breaks out, but the spirit abandons the fight and leaves us with the world-ending threats. The NPC is knocked down into death saving throws. Oh wait, no he wasn't. The moment he went down, the venom activated and turned him into a faceless, mindless demon of sorts. Really messed up stuff. The newly discovered BBEGs decide we're not worth the slaughter and even professes to be interested in the Oni in our party. They left and our party tried to pick up what scraps we had left of ourselves. The tension between characters is high. Some scathing RP words are exchanged and eventually the characters decide it's best to keep going. Everybody was having a great time, or so I thought. I was so pleased with how the narrative between characters was developing. We start exploring the lower area. A man offering a puzzle shows up, we do his puzzle, and we move forward. I think it was, "Here's the key, or you can take the poop bag." But the real key is in the poop bag or something. We keep going and eventually get to a part of the ruin that's crumbled into a cliff face. But the DM says my character notices a footpath in the cliff face that my little goat could traverse to get to a separated part of the hall. I take note of it, but decide I'd rather wait for the party to be together first. Some conversations happen between characters before the DM insists to me that I should take a look at the separated area. So I hop over, the one other person ready to follow me getting blocked off instantly by the sudden appearance of a solid wall. I assume the DM knows what he's doing. The goat meets an old man who's willing to speak with her. He invites her into a room with history etched into the pillars. I only get as far as being shown the pillars before we are taken back to the rest of the party. They continue down the hall and to the next puzzle before the DM comes back to me. He asks if the goat will have been speaking to this old man for a minute. I said, sure, I guess she'll talk to him for a minute or two. The DM asked me to make a constitution save and a wisdom save. My first not-so-great rolls of the night gave me double 7s. The DM declares my character is dead. He then explains the person I'm talking to was casting a spell on me that kills a person instantly if the caster speaks to them for 1 minute. I don't know how else to describe his voice other than giddy. Certainly more energetic than it had been all night. He gets ready to move on, but everybody was stunned silent. I think he realized something, and in the middle of saying I could make a new character, he pivoted and said that I could start making death saving throws. The whole time I'm making them, he says nobody in the party knows where I am and nobody can physically get to me. Well, I missed 2, made 2, and then the final one was a miss. I could almost hear the DM exhale before he said, "Alright, you're welcome to start making a new character and we can reintroduce you next session." What the f? Bro, that sharp left turn hit me harder than my dad. What the hell was that? Now, if you're not watching this from the inside of a padded cell, then you should be sound of mind enough to recognize that that was some absolute bull. But since I want to be inclusive of my viewers who are on a grippy sock vacation, we're gonna go ahead and explore this a bit anyway. There's nothing wrong with running hyper-lethal games if you and the players are all in agreement that that's the kind of game you want to play. There is a not insignificant number of people who enjoy games where they feel as if every breath they take is tempting fate. And to be honest, I'm one of them. Low-key, it's one of the main reasons why I really don't vibe with the coffee shops and cry sessions direction that modern D&D has started moving in. since I find that I have the most fun when the game itself feels like overcoming real danger. But I cannot stress this enough, not everyone shares the same opinions on that. Hell, I would argue that most people don't. If someone who wanted a nice cozy romp around Middle-earth gets thrown into Elden Ring, they're gonna have a bad time no matter how well you run your game. Now, for the sake of argument, let's say that the DM and the players agreed that character death was gonna be a common occurrence and that they should all be prepared for that, which he totally didn't, mind you. I still can't see anyone vibing with what happened here. There's a very clear difference between a game that is lethal and a game that is bullshit. I'd say the main difference between a scenario that is deadly and one that makes you want to become deadly is whether or not the danger makes itself known to the player and if it can be realistically avoided through the actions of the players. Now, if the goat had any indication that there was danger before they got sealed behind the magical wall, whether that being an opportunity to detect the spell being cast or being given evidence that the old man did not have her best intentions at heart, that'd be one thing. But I can't even say that the DM was hiding the danger from OP in this scenario because that would imply that there was any opportunity to find it. This feels like someone saying, "Aw, I should have seen that coming," after getting hit by a meteor.
You mean should have seen that coming? That bitch came from space!
Quick PSA to all you prospective DMs out there.
Don't make the events of your game feel like they came from space!
I said, okay, that's alright. Initially, I just felt bad and defeated, like I was ready to be a big girl and accept the loss of a loved character, but something just didn't feel right about any of that. I spoke up again a couple seconds later and said, wait, no, that's not alright. I don't like what just happened and I feel like I didn't get a choice in it. The DM told me what happened was fair. He didn't know what I was talking about, and that he let me roll, so it's fine. But I wasn't taking any of those as valid excuses for just declaring my character dead and locking me off from the rest of the party to make sure I die? I told the call that I have to go think, but that I would talk to them later. Well, the moment I hit that disconnect call button, I was kicked from the server. The events that happened after that were communicated to me via the Oni's player. The DM said that instant deaths like that were on the table and that they would happen again. The couple were immediately unhappy with this decision and said that if the goat wasn't part of the game, they didn't really have anything else keeping them there. Rocky said he didn't know it was that type of game and left as well. The Oni kept getting the same excuses as to how killing the goat was fair and fine to do. The Oni did the math on the rolls after learning the passing number and communicated that my character only had a 45% chance of making those rolls to avoid instant death. From the goat's official death to the server being emptied of players, it was like 30 minutes. The whole game that had been going so well up until that one moment had died in 30 minutes. I was pretty much just left with my thoughts after that, but I started to realize that some things were off about that session. It was really lethal. We thought it was just a really tough dungeon, but now that I think about it, everything was designed to kill our characters. If we hadn't avoided the venom, some of our down PCs would have instantly died. If we had missed a dex save on those lava pits, I bet it would have been instant death. I also thought about the two giant mini-bosses before we even got into the ruin, who did massive numbers that were only softened by me playing my role as a bard well. I was left to wonder why in the world he was trying so hard to kill us suddenly, and if maybe me preventing so many deaths as our only supportive character made me a target for the DM. The hostility was so sudden. Well, at least I came out of that game with some wonderful artwork and memories of that party. I guess the great part of the DM being reluctant to engage us in RP was that he's oddly barely in my memories of that game. It really was mostly made by the wonderful players, which is a shame because I don't deny the DM had a wonderful world and an interesting story to tell. He even insisted that we write complex backstories to implement into the game. I had been working with him for a while on developing the goat into his world, but I guess none of that mattered by the end. Somebody had to die, and I guess I was the person that he lost his patience with. TLDR, DM got bloodthirsty to kill a party member and railroaded my character to an early grave after saving the PCs multiple times. End of story. Dang, okay, OP. It's not super common that we see OPs who are willing to stand up for themselves like this, so you know what? Mark the date and time, because I'm giving some respect to a Redditor. Just the one, mind you. The rest of the site is a flaming hell pit, except instead of demons, you're saddled with the most insufferable of the terminally online. Anywho, it's totally okay to say I'm not okay with what just happened when you're playing a D&D game. It doesn't make you a bad person to advocate for yourself, and it really should be encouraged to be open and honest about your feelings about stuff. Little caveat though, there's a fine line between advocating for yourself and just being a whiny little b****. What OP did here was a perfect example of the former. They respectfully said that they didn't vibe with what happened, calmly explained why their vibe got thrown off, and then excused themselves to go ponder their vibes and return when their vibes were back in balance. If you're dealing with someone who doesn't evaluate someone's worth by their Reddit karma, then there's a damn near 0% chance that they're gonna react negatively. And if they do, well, that's also a win, because that's your signal to boot them the f*** out of your social circle. It's baffling to me that anyone would want to waste time on someone that you gotta walk on eggshells around 24/7. If the people in your life have problems with you having problems, then they themselves are a problem. And there's a very simple way to deal with those kinds of problems, and that's exactly what OP did. But you know what's a real problem? The fact that we haven't looked at fan art yet. That's right, let's take a look at this week's Gallery of the Drake. This week's fan art comes from viewer Squirrel and depicts the Drake donning a human form. For what purpose? It's unknowable to mortal minds. Why did he give himself a man bun? Also unknowable to mortal minds, but I gotta admit it kinda fits. So, Drake, right? I don't want you to take this the wrong way, but you're different than what you have on your dating profile. Are you saying I'm a liar, Samantha? I said I make $40 million a year reading cringe on YouTube, and there's a picture of me doing it right there. It's not that. I just didn't expect you to look so reptilian. Wow. I told you it was a bad idea to edit your pictures. Hey, it's not my fault women's standards are so high these days. Ugh, this is why I'm single. Yeah, that's the reason. Thank you again, Squirrel, for submitting your art. If you'd like to see your fan art featured in Gallery of the Drake, be sure to send it to the email in my About section, or upload it to the official Den of the Drake subreddit, linked in the description. Fan art is my favorite part of doing YouTube, and it means the world to me that I can inspire artists like you to create artwork like this. With the story over and artwork displayed, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. If you enjoyed the video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. And if you feel like supporting the channel further, my Patreon merchandise and GamerSupps affiliate links are in the description. I would like to thank you all for listening, and I hope to see you next time in the Den of the Drake. Oh, hey there. Well, I guess it's time to shout out the highest tier patrons. Karam Archivals, Cam the Badger, Bro Tater Tot, Soul Taker 666212, Gobshite, Near Bell, Mira Motau, and Matthew Moqueenie. Thank you for your support, Gigabards. My life is falling apart. Hey, if you're still around, YouTube thinks you'd vibe with this video. Give that baby a watch, why don't ya?